that they couldn't even operate without doing this, because they don't have the funds. So, to them, that's how they operate. Instead of having hamburger feeds every Friday, returning the calls.
But everyone will get the bill. So I get the bill, I don't have insurance, I know I can afford to pay it. I'm thankful for the service that I was provided. I write my check, I send it. Great. Maybe not everybody's gonna be able to do that. At least initially, this is a way to get people used to the system, and then we can theoretically look at it as we move forward. Do we wanna start down that path of collections for people who aren't initially paying? And that's it, I mean, that's a kind of a decision we can look at, Greg, regularly, correct?
We'll be able to pull that information right off of One Billing Solutions. When they come in on any reports, we can say, what bills have you sent, what have we collected?
If you're like me, it never occurs to me not to pay the bill.
That- yeah.
It just doesn't,
Well,
you know.
Yeah, most people are, once you've had that service provided, you feel obligated to pay for that service.
Like, it was a sticker shock, but they saved my life, so, you know, wanted to pay the bill.
So Kelly, are there any issues going, if we upfront are saying basically that we're not gonna collect on anything that's not covered by insurance, Medicare, or Medicaid?
Well, this,
Because we would be kinda communicating that.
I just wanna make sure that One Billing Solutions understands these terms.
I think based on our discussion, I don't know that you guys are able to approve this tonight, based on some of your qualifications, but as I read through it, we have to have some sort of collection, any collection or recovery agency acting on our behalf.
And this is how they're getting compensated, is 15%.
15%.
We're limiting their ability to recover through collections. I think you had mentioned this contract, so I just wanna make sure that they're on.
Yeah, cause I wondered, they would be looking at it saying, well, there's a whole part of the pie we're not gonna get here.
Right,
Right.
that's.
Yeah, and from what I understand, they are not gonna look at who the patient is, what their address is. They're gonna say this patient received these services, and these are billable services. They have this insurance, it goes to them, or they don't have insurance, it goes to them individually. They're not picking and choosing, they're just doing what they need to do.
Their criteria for billable services, is that it? Is what they're using a pretty standard?
I believe it falls under the Medicare, Medicaid, that's the first thing you have to apply
Okay.
for.
Right.
For license to bill them, and they have criteria to meet to send them bills, and I believe that same criteria is then pushed down to the other independent agencies, other agents.
So do you know other cities who have this idea where they don't force people to pay?
Dana City, I believe, started that.
And do they go with One Billing Solutions?
Yeah.
So it's
I
not
can
like
get you a list
One
of
Billing
them.
Solutions, this is the first city that's gonna come and pitch this idea to them.
No, actually, a little bit about One Billing Solutions. They were another company. They were local to Nebraska. They serviced a ton of departments in Nebraska. They were bought by a bigger company in Chicago. When that merger happened, they lost all the, the interactions with the department, that personal service. You couldn't get people on the phone. When you had issues, you couldn't get them addressed. So these ladies went off on their own and reopened up their own business again. They were working for that company. They have then since brought on a lot of the companies that went with the other, that moved over to these guys, and some of the other departments that use the bigger company are now going back to One Billing because they met their needs much better than that larger company.
Okay, so this One Billing, would possibly be a move into a situation like we're describing for Seward. If we're not gonna, bill people for the remainder of their building.
Correct, right.
They're
Right
not
now,
gonna-
what we're planning on setting up is 2 bills. First one goes out, no response, second one goes out.
But do they understand that Seward's not going to collect then on that second, after that second
I
message?
think that's what
I think
Kelly's
that's the
saying.
discussion
Yeah.
that Kelly wants us to have.
Right,
We're not sure that they do understand.
okay, that's where I'm at. So we can't do anything with
We
this
wanna make
tonight?
sure
Correct.
they do understand
We
that.
just need to send it back.
They do understand that it will be written off after the second attempt. I believe they said about 15 days after the second attempt goes out, when they do in the books, no response, it's written off. If they get a check 30 days later, they can always go back and.
So
So they
is
they
it
don't
in
require it
this
to go to a collection
agreement?
agency?
No,
Is that written in this fine.
But it might be good for Kelly to verify.
Yeah.
We got legal involved.
Sure, absolutely.
And then the other part for the information was gonna be basically all the same information we gather right now. It's called eNarcis. We have to enter that within 72 hours to the state of Nebraska, so they're gonna take that information.
Yeah, they have already applied for a application to get into our eNarcis system through the state, so they can pull the records as needed. We're gonna change a little bit of what we put in there and make sure all our documentation's in there accurate and up to date.
So do you need a motion to table this?
Or just take no, yeah, that'd be the cleanest, otherwise just say don't, take no action. But before we go there, I just wanna say, I mean, this is like you mentioned, we've been talking about this for a really long time. I feel like we can see the finish line from where we are at, and I think we're getting close. A lot of it was just, a lot of all the volunteer firefighters are very proud of being volunteer firefighters. And the idea of charging was, caused a lot of bristling.
Absolutely.
And which is totally understandable if you understand the culture and the history of the department. And so this was sort of a real gradual process, because we wanted to make sure that the questions that got answered, like where does the money go, who has, what can we spend it on, and so that's why this has been something we've been kicking around for, well,
Years.
at least a decade for me, but longer than that
Yeah.
probably for others. And so there are a lot of communities that have gone to a billing system. You might be surprised at, some of the numbers you see are like 6-figure numbers. And so when you're looking at wanting a new fire truck, or right now we wait for the mutual aid funds to come around, and we budget for those with the sinking fund, but this would be another way to be able to be more responsive to those needs, and not have to necessarily let the rotation dictate of who gets the next vehicle. We can be more proactive in meeting those needs, and so I do really appreciate that relationship with the fire department. I commend them for at least listening to this and having this conversation, because I know originally, I don't even know we got through the door
No.
when we first brought this
The
up.
word was mentioned and we left the room knowing that it wasn't happening.
Right, and so this is something that I think will be a huge benefit for the department as well as we move forward, because these vehicles don't get cheaper, they get more and more expensive, and they're custom built to your specifications, and so with that, unless you have any other questions or comments, did you have a
Can-
motion?
No, I'll do a motion to table.
Can we do the motion to after Kelly verifies with that?
Well, don't we have to bring it back?
Just table it to the next
Yeah.
meeting.
Table it to
We'll
a
get-
future
we'll get
meeting,
Yeah.
and
all
then
the
we'll get
information
the
you talked about.
information.
Yeah,
next
I'll make a
meeting.
motion to table it to a future meeting after Kelly has had his conversation.
Second.
Alright, motion and second, is there any further discussion?
Do I have any issue continuing to work with One Billing Solutions, because they are currently setting up the ability to perform these tasks?
I think the
without signing
preparation
anything?
work is fine.
Okay.
They understand we haven't signed the agreement yet.
They
So
They
long
do it
as-
at their own risk.
Yeah, so long as there's no expectation, they have to understand that until documents are signed, there's no agreement. But if they're willing to work with you, in the meantime, that's absolutely fine.
There's an intention to have an agreement
Yeah.
going forward, it's just
Right.
detail.
Because the department themselves have voted to
Yeah.
use One Billing Solutions.
Yeah,
But it has to go through you to
Yeah.
finalize that decision.
and we also wanna make sure that, like the discussion was, we wanna make sure that One Billing Solutions, we're all on the same page, so there's no surprises if we're not collecting on something that they expected to get a percentage of. We need to have that discussion before y'all vote on it, so I think we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
Alright, so you had a motion to table it into a future meeting, and then we had a second. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor to table, Beck, Camper, Coulterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendrick, 6-0.
Thank you, appreciate it, all your work on this.
Thanks.
Item number 3, update on process for requests for proposals, requests for qualifications to acquire financial and compliance audit services. Greg?
Yeah, approximately 5 years ago, we had put out an RFP for audit services. M&G was our successful awarded bidder on that one, I guess you could say. There's a lot more criteria than just price. And so we took that back. Our agreement with them runs out this year for our audit services in the fall. And so we went back and met with the Personnel Finance and Audit Committee, and I asked Finance Director Nick Wolf to make a recommendation on a bunch of different options that we could do for audit services. The ultimate recommendation by Nick is to seek out a letter of engagement and to another offer from AMGL. They've done a really good job. We've kind of really fine-tuned that process with our staff up there, especially with such a new staff. And so due to the high level of regard, the fact that we get, you know, the main person that runs the firm comes in and does the presentation and the actual physical audit on site, gives us really great access. And so we felt like it was appropriate, based on that recommendation, to bring forth to you tonight an offer from them. And so that is in there for audit services. I can answer any specific questions about it. Again, all my department heads like bailed out on me this week, and so I'm covering all these for them. But you see a riser in there that was also included in our last one. They did give a quote for audit services for some of our other things. We have to do a single or a specific audit for the Library Foundation. They also gave a quote for Seward Airport Authority. It's just a la carte. Whatever we do utilize, the fees are there. What we don't, they don't charge us for. And then our budget services, that's a separate agreement also on this one. We would recommend, no matter what you do, just because we're rolling into budget season now, we won't have time to get anybody else on board. We would make recommendation for the budget even just for this fiscal year, but if we wanted to approve this agreement, obviously that would cover us up through the quote here. I can answer any specific questions you have.
Were there other companies that were allowed to bid on this?
No, because we didn't, we asked the committee,
You didn't, like, put it out for
yes, we asked the committee, do you want us to go out and do an RFQ and RFP? Or do you want us to go back to our current auditor? Because we don't have any specific concerns, questions, or issues. We file a state audit every year. And we left that in the hands of the Personnel Finance and Audit Committee. And so we let them make a recommendation. Their recommendation was just to bring this one forth at this time.
So if we wanted to look at like some comparative bids, we don't have any to look at.
Correct.
It was the
And-
committee's thought that when we had put it up for bids in the past, you know what we got, the same old, right?
Right.
Same companies. These people have done such an exemplary
Yeah,
job.
I agree they have. I
So-
just, since I'm not involved in that process, I didn't know.
Yeah, that's, in the discussion was basically, we felt very comfortable. They give us a level of service that we didn't get with previous, so we just felt good about going to continue the contract.
And on this sort of one specific, and I'm not speaking anything specific to any prior auditors we've had, but you do not want to go with the lowest cost on this. This is very much a very specific professional service, and you want to be confident that they can perform and do this on the regular. I think sometimes we had bidders in the past that weren't involved in municipal audit, government audit, and they just don't work within those standards on the regular basis, and that caused a lot of havoc.
Will the library and the airport be going in with this?
The library already does.
Does.
We already cover the
Right,
library
okay.
and have under the previous one. The airport, we usually just let them know and let them know the cost.
Is this
I will
cost
tell you, this
significantly
cost
cheaper?
is significantly cheaper. It may be 1/10.
We don't have any authority to implement this for the airport?
You do not. My understanding, and Kelly can confirm with me, you only have control of the purse, which is their tax levy, but you don't have specific
Line item.
policy or line item. And so if you wanted to try to get heavy with their levy and ask them to do some stuff, otherwise they're not getting their request, you could do that, but that's really the only authority you would have.
Thank you.
Any other advantage, you know, with this firm is because they do so many other municipalities, is they can provide a perspective and context and how are we doing compared to other communities because they have all that data. So there is some value there as well. So this is 3A, this is a compilation engagement letter with AMGL for the
This is
preparation.
actually just 3.
Oh, just 3?
Yep.
Did you want to go on to 3A?
No, 3 is the offer from them for audit services.
Okay.
So it's just a motion to approve, and then we bring you the engagement letter for it.
I'd move to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes, please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camperth, Coulterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 6-0.
Okay.
And then A is the specific engagement letter for that budget element for this budget year that we do with them each year.
Move to, go ahead.
Move to approve.
Second.
The motion and second, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camperth, Colterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendrick, 6-0.
Okay, item 4, consideration of a professional services agreement with Sen for construction management services related to CBDG, CDBG.
Yep.
Typo.
The construction management service element of our downtown revitalization grants. This agreement allows Send and basically get reimbursed for going and meeting with the contractors and doing all the contractor engagement, where they go out and they verify wages, they do the initial contractor meeting, all of those elements, those are all handled by Send as our CDBG administrator. So that's what this agreement's for.
Any questions or comments, or entertain a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camperth, Colterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendrick, 6-0.
Item 5, award community development block grants, downtown revitalization program, forgivable loans. Greg?
This is the only one that has moved through the next tier 2, and so we're teeing this one up. We did remove some painting on the side that had, I think they were trying to kind of re-up I don't want to say historical because I don't know all the context of it, but in the alleyway there was some old advertising painting that they were going to try and redo, and that anything in alley work or the rear ends of the buildings are just not under the qualifications for the DED, so we had them remove that, and then this one went through tier 2. So cornice work and some of the other stuff that's up towards the top that needs to be touched up. So
I have a question. How was the go? Believe?
do you have to abstain from these?
I shouldn't from this one, should I? Cause I'm not involved.
Yeah, but
I'm
you
involved in
abstained
the
last
project.
time
And
because you were
it's a
involved.
pool, right?
Okay, that's fine, but can I still ask a question? I can go sit in there, up there if you need
Go
me
ahead.
to ask a question. My question on this project in itself is last go round, the gentleman that previously owned the property did it on the awning. And the awning was awarded, the awning was paid back and reimbursed. And then when he purchased it, the awning was tore down, even though there's a 5-year agreement contract between
The original owner.
us.
Yep.
So then how is he able to then be eligible for another awning,
Because he's not the original owner.
but have we gone back on the previous owner for that, we're just gonna not worry about
We
that
can-
agreement?
We can try, but I have no direction specifically,
Okay.
so.
I need to abstain.
Any other questions or comments on 5A? Otherwise, entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camperth, Colterman, Singleton, Streisand, abstaining, Hendrick.
Item 6, amendments to the employee handbook dated November 15, 2016. Derek?
Hold on 1 second, we right? As we talked about earlier this year, so back in January and then in February, we are going through the employee handbook, which is dated November 15, 2016. Going through modernizing it, trying to, I guess, slim it down, make it more efficient. There's just a lot of wording in there. So just trying to say the same thing or improve the wording in it by saying less words, just making it easier for the reader to get through. The first section was approved on February 1st, so that's already implemented. And now, with the help of Greg and Nick Wolf, we went through section 2 and section 3. And what you have here tonight is a clean version of the changes that we presented to the Personnel Audit Finance Committee. That was approved on June 7th. And then we presented this to the department heads on June 14th. They looked it over and they didn't have any qualms with it, so we're moving it forward. I kinda, as I indicated in the memo for each section, I kinda gave an overview of the proposed changes for each section, you know, and how, you know, the notable things, not every word that was changed. You know, a couple of things that were changed, I'll point out, was in how we do annual performance pay. Right now, we give a lump sum payment every April 1st to a person that's at step 9, which is our highest step. And it's the difference between step 8 and step 9, so for some employees it might be $3,000, for some it might be $1,000. So if one person will get checked for 3,000, one person will get checked for 1,000, you know, if they're at the top of their, pay range. So we thought by making a cap of 3%, that would be equitable to people, so if 2 employees have a good year, then they can expect to get 3%. As opposed to, okay, I get 1,000, that person gets 3,000. But at the same time, we recognize that we have people that are over that 3% cap that we're proposing. So we don't wanna, you know, penalize them at all, cause it's not their fault that they're over that 3%. So we're gonna freeze that amount, and then once they get within that 3% again, then they'll move up, you know, with that. And then the second thing is longevity pay. The way we do it now, every 2 years, an employee gets $5 added on to their salary or 3 cents to their hourly rate. It's a really big administrative burden for our payroll clerk and finance director to implement this every payroll period, because they have to kind of go through and say, okay, this person had an anniversary, better add that, you know, and you can forget that very easily. So what our proposal is that every October 1st, when the cost of living adjustment is implemented, then we would put that longevity pay for each employee that completed a successful year. So instead of doing it every 2 years, it's then 1 year. You know, so we do that October 1st for all employees one time, rather than going through every payroll. And then that one, each each hourly employee would get 2 cents a year. So in 2 years they get, you know, 4 cents total, so they're making a little bit more. And then each salaried employee would get $3.47 added on, which would be you know, over the $5 that they would get every 2 years. So it helps the employee out by giving them a little bit more money for sticking with us for a while. Makes it a little bit easier and more efficient for our payroll clerk and finance director. So we thought it would just be a better all-around system for that. I think those are the 2 big ones, you know, the money ones. Doesn't really.
Is the $5 enough, you think, for retention, you know, with all the issues going on in our world we have today?
Yeah. So,
Is it?
I mean, we have that cost of living, you know, that we look at every fall, which, you know, that's really the thing. But I mean, this is a little bit of a bump that helps people say, okay, they appreciate me, you know, and I get a little bit more.
I know,
Speak to that a little more.
I'm looking at all the other businesses, and, you know, from here to Lincoln, that are really out there giving retention wages and sign-ons, and they're wanting there to gather any employees they can to intrigue them to come. I'm just saying, we have good workers, I mean, we wanna retain them, and it's $5 enough.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Nick's not here to speak to specifically the finances, but I would say, if you wanted to make any adjustments to that element, I think you should get into the budget process first, because as we set the COLA and propose it, it's usually based off what that cost of living index is with the CPI, and it is astronomical right now. And so, I think you should take a look at that first and address compensation packages in relation to that in the totality of the budget, because it's gonna be sizable. We're trying to, our whole mindset with making these changes in the handbook is trying to look at it from the perspective, though, that our greatest asset at the city is our employees. And so we're trying to look at ways to compensate them or find other flexible ways to provide benefit or flexibility within this. A lot of the big heavy hitting stuff of that is in the next section with leave and a lot of our other policies, but we haven't gotten to that one yet, and that one's gonna take us a long time to get through. But we spend an extensive amount of time on this one as well. I just think from a specific perspective, I would address it when you look at the budget and do comparability adjustments, and then also look at the COLA, because that's a substantial number. So.
Any questions or comments from the council?
Just to say thanks to Derek and Nick and Greg for all this work and the many hours I know going through all of those red lines, that it is a tremendous amount of work and a big task, and needed to be done, and the updates are really good, so thank you.
Can we do A and B together, or not?
Kelly, you have a preference? Unless someone wants to pull it out, we can break them together. Okay, so I'm asking for a motion on both 6A and 6B, unless the council member would like to pull one of those out and do them separate.
I'll move to approve A and B.
Second.
Motion and second, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes, please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camper, Coulterman, Singleton, Strice, and Hendrick, 6-0.
Right, item number 7, Greg, update on Wellness Center.
Kind of a blur this last week. A lot of things were kind of thrown off by the storm. I would say the biggest one is on Friday, we were given notice that we were awarded, well, technically, Seward Changing the Game was awarded the $5 million shovel-ready grant in totality, all $5 million. So, paperwork will be processed, they sent us some guidelines and stuff, so the next part of it is, we're gonna go through the guidelines and really understand all the fine-tooth elements that we need to get involved with. I have a call tomorrow with DED for the Capital Funds Project grant, which is up to $10 million. And so I'm gonna have a deep dive discussion with them on that one tomorrow. We also, Seward Changing the Game hired, and I may have mentioned this before, but a grant writer. And so they're paying for that out of their funds. And so they've engaged a grant writer, and we did submit a $1 million grant proposal to the Hewitt Foundation and have a litany of grants going out the door, or applications going out the door in the next 15 to 30 days. And so we're gonna keep doing our part to find more and more funds, one, to cover inflation, because we know it's coming, and two, to try and offset the tax burden to the sales tax. Fulfill that obligation of 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, and try to even go way beyond that and reduce the obligation of sales tax, and just keep going after it for as long as we can until the project's built. So those are probably the big ones. The next thing you'll probably see is now that we probably feel comfortable with this grant coming on, and once we understand the guidelines, the next element will be the RFQ probably for final design, so that we can start the project calendar timeline and get it moving. So I'll probably be drafting an RFQ for final design and engineering. And then we'll probably also want to have a strong conversation with bond counsel to tee up for the sales tax to start rolling in January. So that's the big news on that one right now. So kudos again to the group and the board for sort of changing the game. They did a lot of that work. I think I ended up having to do a lot of the last end of that grant application, but
We'll get you a press release also very quickly.
so that just happened at like 4:45 on Friday.
Good. Any questions for Greg on the Wellness Center update? If not, then we'll go to the city administrator's report.
I don't know that I have anything specific from the administrator's report. Update on just city damages in relation to the hailstorm. I did go out the day afterwards, and a lot of my crew did. The fire department did an incredible job that evening of going out and meeting with citizens, especially in the southern sections of Seward, and checking in with Walmart, because that's a 24-hour facility, and everything else, to do follow-up on that. I did have conversations with Gary Peterson and informed him of some of the situations down in Twin Oaks on the day of, and I met with some of the citizens and provided them Red Cross information, because we have a few displaced ones down there. And so we're gonna work through some issues down there. They have some transportation and other issues that aren't storm specific, but we're also gonna try to address. The city has significant damage to vehicles and roofs and everything else, and the adjusters were out for both of those today. They'll be back tomorrow.
Question, would you have them look at the fire department when they're?
I think they're hitting everything that's
Okay.
literally insured on the list.
Okay.
They're going to every facility.
We got 2 vehicles that were out.
Yep. So there were 2 guys out, they were trying to figure out how to get on the roof. They didn't feel like going through the top of City Hall was safe, so we had to get a bucket truck. Not the lift that's over there, that's for the Eliminate Seward lights. We had to do something else to get these guys up on the roof. There was some significant damage at the library, actually. It took the brunt of the windows. I just heard from Derek today, talking to the adjusters, I think, that they think they're gonna have to replace the whole window, not just the little framing on top that broke, because those windows aren't made like that anymore. So, and then the tower, Bob Corr's crew went over with a scissor lift today, electronic scissor lift, and cleaned out all the glass up in the top of the tower that's still remaining in there, so it's safe to go in there and do final cleanup. And so he was working with Becky Baker's staff to get that all done, so hopefully we'll have that section of the library open back up shortly. And then just a ton of hail damage for anything that was outside, so. That's kinda the situation in regards to storm. I can answer any storm specific questions. And I don't have a number right now, I don't know what the total adjuster number will be until they get us everything back.
When you get into NIMS, what kind of percentage are we at with, I know we got a newer staff, so what percentage needs to get caught up on NIMS, cause that's a federal,
I don't know
real
what the,
important thing.
we don't know what the percentage is.
That's
I
some of
completed
the-
my 200, 700, and 800 today.
Yeah, that's something that Chief Peters is tracking. I'm not sure what other departments, you know, where everybody's at. I know at City Hall, we're working on that, and we're doing it as time allows. I think some departments, they've, you know, like the electric department, for example, they worked and got all theirs done. So it's just kinda up to the department head to do that, but Chief Peters tracking that.
Any other questions for Greg? If not, entertain a motion to accept the report.
Motion to accept the report.
Second.
Motion and a second, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camper, Coulterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 6-0.
Alright, do you have any future requests for council agenda items or administrative action? Hearing none. Be upcoming events.
Seward, 4th of July.
Are you aware of that?
I hadn't heard.
Did you know that's coming up? He has it, yes.
You got it? Okay, just making sure.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, we have lots of upcoming community events, including 4th of July. Festivals that are upcoming this summer throughout Seward County. You can keep updated on that stuff through the Blue River Buzz, which is our weekly newsletter. In SCCDP strategic plan, we've identified our commuter population as a group that we want to reach better, so we've launched our own podcast. We had Greg on that a few weeks ago, and then we've had a couple more come and talk as well. So you can find that on all the major podcasting platforms. And then lastly, I spoke about this last time, but UNL is hosting 25 individuals from 18 different African countries. They're called the Mandela Washington Fellows. They'll be here for 6 weeks, and specifically visiting Seward on the 23rd. That's Thursday, thank you. And then for supper, and then a mock 4th of July committee meeting afterwards. So we ask you to all consider attending that. And that is all I have.
Alright, thank you. Greg, just something else to add?
Just another one, I didn't get this one into the packet. Another random award we got that I forgot to tell you about, because my mind, as soon as it happened, my mind went to the storm, and so I've been stuck in that until insurance adjusters go in. We were also notified that we received a 100% grant to replace the Plum Creek Bridge on Hillcrest Bluff Road. That came in last week too. It's gonna take a while. They already forewarned us because we'll have to do all the federal requirements for NEPA and things like that. But we were notified last week and documentation will be coming, but that bridge, that was my big target for the infrastructure money. And I got that one too. So that's a 100% covered bridge.
Greg had a good week.
Yeah, that storm wasn't fun. That's not fun seeing people's houses covered and crushed by trees and stuff. But kudos to my staff, the fire department again, all the work they did going out in the middle of the night, all the street department guys, the electric guys with the power outage that took place. Mayor Eichmeyer, he was out that evening as well, kind of getting updates. The police and dispatch was getting calls, because that thing rolled in from the county, and so they're taking all those calls as soon as power and stuff started getting obliterated on the western end of the county. And so they're up there trying to do their best, so thank you to Spencer and his staff up there. I cannot speak highly enough of the skills of all of our staff across the board.
Thanks, Greg. So with that, do a strategy session.
Yes, I move that the city council goes into closed session with the mayor, city administrator, city clerk, and city attorney for the protection of the public interest and discuss real estate interests and to provide the city attorney with negotiating guidance for a period not to exceed 30 minutes.
Do a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Do a motion and a second, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camper, Coulterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 6-0.
The council has voted to go into closed session for the protection of the public interest and to discuss real estate interests and to provide the city attorney with negotiating guidance. We are in closed session. Thank you everyone for coming this evening. Thank you.
No action will be taken.